Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report this weekend. Garrett Toy and Chip Flory joining us. All right, Garrett, when you look at the planting progress numbers, yeah, we're not really behind except in those northern states. But typically this time of year, we would be really focused on supply in the markets. Does the market care about supply this year?
We do, but at this point, the ideas are really shifted or focused on the whisper numbers of the Brazilian safrinha crop. It went in fine. In fact, Mato Grosso might have picked up some acres up there, but we knew that we had a small gap of the U.S. export window, and China came in, bought some corn from us, and that actually helped us out. But now with the cancellations this week, I think for the most part, they've taken that lifeline back, and we're focused on Brazilian corn offers for July and August that are $30, $40, $50 a ton cheaper than U.S. offers, and that's a problem, especially when we have a demand problem in a market that is fairly convinced that we've done the job of demand rationing.
Chip, right after that grain stocks report came out at March, we talked about how the wild card was China. So as we see China come in and cancel some cargoes this week, do we know why, and how does that change our stocks situation?
Well, I think it definitely will change the stock situation, and I think it's taking away the concern of the planting season and the conditions that we've got up in North Dakota and South Dakota, Minnesota, because we're adding to the beginning stocks. If we're not going to get to USDA's corn export estimate, I just don't think that's going to happen, even though they've already pulled it back considerably. We probably need to take another 100 million bushels off it, maybe 150 million bushels, and that goes directly into the beginning stocks for the 23-24 growing season. So we're replacing some lost potential, maybe, with the beginning stock. So it's a canceling effect.
Well, Garrett, earlier you mentioned that there is a demand problem. You look at this flooding on the Mississippi River. Typically, it would really have it in crisis mode. Are we seeing any impact, though, in loading some of these key exports?
Not really. I mean, we don't have the demand. In fact, barge freight's been in a steady decline, and it's impacting the mid-miss and up. I mean, and I saw reports today that we're going to have the mid-miss closed until May 14th is the number I've seen. But if we had an export program, this would be a major problem. But barge freight's been trading lower for 3-4 weeks just because there's nothing moving. We're not seeing a huge demand pull. And lastly, even this week, there's talk that we're at the point now where the barge freight lines are going to start tying down barges to the tune of 500 to 1,500 barges. They're going to tie down because we just don't need them. So, I don't think the market's going to be too concerned about the river issues. Obviously, they're going to watch for flooding issues, as we all are in the northern plains. But the fact that we don't have an export program is definitely taking some of the fire out of the pit.
Chip, you're seeing some of that flooding firsthand.
Yep.
Is it going to impact a lot of acres?
I don't think it will, Tyne. That Mississippi River Valley, there's some farm ground that we're not going to be able to get to. There's no question about that. But for the most part, it's got to get really high further downstream to create some issues. And they're managing the water as best they can. But we're looking at the third highest crest that we've ever seen in the upper Mississippi. So it is a major event, and how they manage that water downstream later, that's when it could really become an issue. So I'm not downplaying it. It is going to be an issue, but it's not an issue in the upper Midwest.
Well, Garrett, based on some of these areas that are seeing some delay as far as planting progress goes, do you think farmers are changing up their acreage decisions at all right now?
Not really. I think in 10 days, you asked me that question, it'll be different. But at this point, I think everyone's kind of sticking to where they're at. You look at the 6 to 10 day, you look at the 8 to 14 day. A lot of the corn belt is going to dry out. It's going to be cold. That's not going to prevent anybody from planting if it's cold. I mean, they're not going to like it, but they're still going to go as long as they can get through the field. I think if we're 10 days from now, we get in that May 10th time period, I think people are probably going to change things. But this year's kind of been still early, to be honest with you. I mean, as we mentioned earlier, the planting progress is still at or above pace. That might slow up here a little bit, but I don't think the market's too concerned of it at this point.
Well, do North Dakota and South Dakota farmers, do they have that same incentive to really take a gamble if planting does continue to get pushed back like they did last year? We'll talk about that, but first we need to take a quick break right here on U.S. Farm Report.